Welcome to Bond MOTS, where we'll be applying the Manzer or mostly Thurlow scale of quantitative analysis of pop culture narrative to a binary system.
This podcast contains spoilers, mature content, and language. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome once again to Bond MOTS. We have just seen Logan, the latest X-Men-ish spin-off movie. I, of course, remain Scott Thurlow, as ever, here tonight with Rich Berry.
Good evening.
Chris Morgan.
Good evening.
And Stephen Amosi.
Hey, yeah.
So, I think we just came up with a number of log lines, but I liked Two Men and a Mutant, which I think is good enough. And so we'll start off with Rich with the intro.
All right, so we're introduced to Logan as an old man struggling through life. He's set himself up as a limo driver trying to get money together to buy a boat so that him, Xavier, and Caliban can start their lives anew out on the ocean.
I guess apparently, yeah, that was their master plan.
So you see that he's taking care of Xavier, who's now got dementia and has epic seizures that threaten to kill everyone around him. And he he gets asked to help this woman who's trying to get this little girl named Laura to North Dakota so they can reach the border. But she offers him the money that he needs to get his boat. And before he can help her, he finds her dead in the hotel room. And then the Reavers show up, their leader being Donald Pierce, who had asked him to contact him if he'd run into this girl. And they show up at the hideout where they get into a fight and are forced to flee with Professor X and Laura in tow. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where the intro ends.
I think we agree. That's the intro. So I very much enjoyed it. So real quickly, this, again, if you're a comic fan, this ostensibly is based on Old Man Logan, but not really. Like, it's just sort of Logan as an old man, not the story of the comics.
Right.
But it was pretty great to see, like, he sort of run down, like...
It took a lot of beats from different stories with an older Logan, with the adamantium poisoning him.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that was a very nice touch you would bring up, but yeah, he's just like sort of an odd job guy, random limo driver, basically an Uber guy.
Yeah.
And, good.
I like what they do with him showing that he's getting old and dying for some reason. They give him like a noticeable limp. His wounds don't really heal nearly as fast as they used to.
His claws don't come out or pop. Don't come out as fast and don't pop.
He's got an impotent claw.
Yeah. I like when he first got out of the limo. It seemed like he couldn't, like he had broken his ankles or something. Like he was having a hard time just standing.
He looked beat down.
I took that as him being just really drunk.
Yeah, I guess.
But I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, that was a nice touch. All I'm saying is I thought it was a nice setup for sure. And like sort of like the future. I think real quickly also he was driving the limo and on the radio they said something like there's been no more mutants in 25 years, like no mutant born, something like that. So you like sort of introduce like 25 years ish into the future of ostensibly the end of the last X-Men took place in present-ish day. And yeah, so the thing I like the most is Professor X like having dementia and like that meaning like his powers like threaten people around him and he just doesn't even know that he's doing it. So they have to keep him suppressed. A big part of Logan's earnings from the limo business, I suppose, are going to buying pharmaceuticals that will help keep Professor X in check, I suppose. Right. And yeah, so then he sort of like is accosted by the Gabriella, I believe her name was, who has a child with her, who she wants Logan to take to a place in North Dakota, I believe. Yeah, it's all like I just liked it. It was grittier, all of it, than the whole movie. That is, than most things you've seen. And it's just, again, a nice little spin on the characters and the setting. So
yeah, right from the get-go, it's going to be an incredibly violent movie.
Yeah, sure.
In the first scene, Wolverine's just like decapitating a dude.
It's pretty brutal too. Like first of all, like basically a bunch of gang members like rough him up. Like
they wake him up from a drunken stupor by trying to steal the wheels off of his car.
That was a really neat little.
It was a great kind of cold open sort of battle. But the thing I liked about it was the movie got me where I was like, okay, I like it that they're showing like he's. Again, like, not as spry as he used to be. Like, he might actually, like, get beat up by these guys and they'll leave him in the ditch. But no, like, when he really, really is pushed, he comes back and it is Wolverine.
It was right when he was about to fire on his spine that he just lost his shit and, like, killed everyone.
So,
Well, except for that one guy that got away.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I mean, I liked it all. Like I said, it was a nice little sort of not left turn or say like a different path than the normal like previous X-Men movies, and I really enjoyed the way it was portrayed. So
Yeah, it was a great setup for this movie, and I think it stays strong throughout. So I don't know about if you guys have anything else to say.
No, I'm going to give it a 1.
I'm giving it a
Solid one.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, and that'll bring us to Chris with the body.
Okay, once they escape Mexico, they stop at a rest stop, and they have a little minor altercation with the kid who works there. Then they take their beaten up truck to stop at a casino hotel, and just to kind of lick their wounds,
Regroup. Yeah.
regroup. Watch Shane.
That's an important fact that they watch Shane.
That's the thing. It's just like the important factors are
it's
the
a nice
rest stop
touch, though.
that he's watching Shane,
Yep.
and Wolverine goes to buy a car while Laura and Professor X are watching Shane, and Pierce and the Reavers show up, and
Oh, quickly, the Reavers sort of force Caliban to work for them and track.
yeah, that's right.
So that's how they keep finding them.
That's right. I'm sorry. Yeah. The Reavers did take Caliban, and Caliban was, basically acted like their bloodhound. And, what happens is after Wolverine goes to get the truck and he comes back, and, Professor X is having a seizure, and he gets up there, and, the Reavers are already in the room. So like while everybody's paralyzed, he slaughters them. Then they escape and, through, few circumstances, they end up with this family of farmers, the Munsons, and
Is that really their name? I didn't
yeah,
catch it in the film. All right, go on.
the Munsons, and, they live near a cornfield, which is all because Mr. Munson says that they've been making corn syrup, which is an aspect of the movie. And, Professor X and Laura upstairs, she's sleeping on the floor, and he's sleeping in the bed, and he thinks Wolverine comes in, says this is one of the most
actual Logan has gone to help the father of the family fix a
right.
pipe.
I'm sorry, I meant to mention
Who went to
that
go
with
intimidate some rednecks.
Yeah, we're definitely going to
exactly.
talk about this scene.
I'm just trying to get it. I was just trying to get the skeleton.
I just want to make sure like that's in there. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Okay.
buddy.
So, X-24 reveals himself, which is like basically Logan, just psychotic, weaponized Logan.
Clonegin.
Yes, very nice. I
he
like
kills
Vereen.
Xavier, and then he kills the Munson son, then, Mrs. Munson, and then Mr. Munson, and he, almost leaves with the girl. Wolverine comes in, rescues her, and Caliban blows himself up and causes some damage for the Reavers, which allow Wolverine to escape with Laura and Xavier's body. They bury him by a lake, and Wolverine's barely holding himself together, or Logan, should we say.
Yes.
Falls asleep at the wheel, and Laura drives them to North Dakota.
To Eden, which
in North Dakota.
apparently is popular.
One thing else is that Laura was looking at a picture before she went to sleep, and on the back of the picture were some coordinates that were once seen in an X-Men comic that was in the movie.
That apparently is where Eden were like.
Right.
To be clear, Logan realizes that it's the same coordinates from the comic book, so he thinks it doesn't exist. Like it's just a pipe dream, like something like a false hope to keep her going. But when they get there, is in fact populated by a bunch of other vat-grown mutants, which it comes clear later on in the body also that Laura is.
Now, what I was thinking is, do you think that they built that house specifically at that point because of the comic book?
Yes, that's how I took out of it.
I mean,
look,
well,
it was a bare bones house. It was only meant they're only meant to stay there for like a week or 10 days, and then they were going to leave.
Yes, but like it was almost like a wrench. See, if we used to have an old mod skill, the immersion question. I thought to myself, these kids built all this shit. Like, but anyways,
well, no,
I was going to say it was built for them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they get to Eden, if you will, while the other kids are.
Because all the nurses in the hospital were behind their escape. So, in the company Alkali,
Transgen or something.
Yeah, Transgen.
Brought to you by Alkali.
Brought to you by Alkali. They had to have some kind of a railroad set up. So the house was probably.
I'm assuming that all of their handlers were murdered along the way.
Oh yeah, completely.
Right.
That's what it seems like.
Anyway, so they get there.
So after they
I don't
built
think
that,
they would have just left them there.
yeah, after they built the house, they just went off to pasture.
That's kind of what I was confused about. I was like, did all these kids just make it there by themselves? Like, they must have had somebody bring them
That's what
there.
I'm
Like,
saying.
all the adults just took off.
Like, I just wanted to briefly point it out, is all. But
But yeah, so throughout the rest of I thought there were a couple like awesome set pieces, I guess,
Yes.
like the casino.
yes, exactly. That
Was
was
great.
one of my favorites.
And the house, the Munson house, the Munson
The
household.
Munson murder, if you will.
Yeah, the Munson
Munson
murder
murder.
house.
Alliteration.
Mhm.
were really good set pieces, just like brutal fight scenes in both of those places. Actually, the casino one was really interesting because it wasn't really a fight. It was
Per se,
everybody
yeah.
being locked down by Professor X while Logan just struggled his way in and
Forced his
murdered
way
the
through.
hell out of
I was
everybody.
trying to say,
field.
like, because once he got there, he saw the professor with like 2 automatic weapons, like pointed directly at his head. I wonder if he brought that seizure on purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if like the stress exacerbated it or something.
I think
I
it
was
sort
gonna
of
say it was
mix
a
of
little
both.
little column A, little column B.
But anyway,
but
I
that
do- I
was
do
really
love-
interesting
I-
because it
yeah.
started. He had just pulled up in the truck,
Mhm.
and it started. So he had to go, all the way through the casino. And if you've ever been
Into
to a
the
casi-
elevator.
if you've ever been to a casino, trying to find the elevator from anywhere in the goddamn casino floor is impossible
Anyway,
intentionally.
but you're right.
Yeah, everybody should have been dead, I think.
Yeah, because I'm sitting there when I'm like, oh my god, he's gonna make it through this casino and up the elevator. I'm like, oh my god,
yeah.
it was a really
It was a very
well
excellent
done
set piece and like a clever like sort of use of that.
Every time the professor went through one of those seizures, it was like it got super tense, and the sound design on those was great.
Yeah.
It just like felt like
Made you feel as if you were like
Yeah.
in the echo of it.
something
And stuff.
terrible was happening. There was like a really shrill, piercing.
It was like
Sounding-
it was a nice little callback to X-Men 2 when he had
Yeah.
Cerebro on.
Yeah.
Started concentrating on every mutant and then
I
every
took it
human
as
in the
such
world.
as well.
Yeah, I didn't think about
Yeah,
that.
it was
Yeah,
a great
that's good.
touch. And anyway, like
But the thing I like about that scene so much is that is one of those scenes that in a lesser director like, Zack Snyder, that,
all right, take it easy.
that, sorry, we did,
Check out was it worth?
that scene could have been, unbearably long and
Yes.
it was paced just well. You got to see him in
Exactly.
the casino
I
and then you
agree.
got to see him in the elevator and they really just built the tension where he was climbing up the wall. He had to put his claws in the wall to help propel himself up.
Yeah.
They even like gave a little comedy element too with the all the Reavers like moving their
Yeah,
eyes.
they could like slow motion see him as he stabs him in the face.
It was
really well done.
extremely well done. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. So that was definitely one
It would
of
have
the
been great
highlights.
to have that one guy that's just like tossing his gun off, like giving hands up in the air, like I'll even work for these guys.
Yeah,
this.
he would have been dead. That's the point where like you knew take no prisoners.
Yeah, no, it was all pretty great. So anything else
so there
specific
was
you want to
that.
talk about?
There was the and I guess we could briefly talk about the household scene. Where like equally important to the crazy badass fight scene is the kind of the Logan and Professor X and Lauren all getting this sense of
Laura.
Laura all getting this sense of family.
True, yeah, you're right.
Through their experience.
I was going to
there.
bring that up in themes, but you're right. It's a good point. It was an important scene for that reason.
But yeah, and like kind of, it's that lull in the movie that you kind of need to give yourself so you can catch your breath a little
breather,
bit
yeah,
in
exactly.
between really intense scenes, and it was good. Like that, the whole family there did their part really well, acted their part really well, and you got to see a little bit different sides of the professor. Like you kind of got to see some of his regret,
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and the same for Logan.
I mean that on that whole farm scene took the fact that all that family died was just. I mean, in retrospect, when Professor we're eating dinner, they're talking about traveling and Charles is just like, "You will travel." I mean, in retrospect, that might have well retired, bought a boat that says "Live Forever" on it. I mean, there was just that little sniper,
Oh, I knew
target on the
as
head.
soon as he insisted that they stay, that was just
Yeah.
like the death knell.
Yeah, like
Well, I mean, I knew they were going to be attacked, but that they all died, and they made no bones about it. The kid walked in, and X-24 just stabbed him in the chest. I'm like, oh my god, okay,
sure.
this-
It wasn't like trying to hide anything. Like, but again, I think we agreed. I think we said it's offcast, so maybe it's scroll style. But just you made me think of it, Chris. Is that all the action was pretty like again grittily brutal, they didn't like shy away from anything, and it wasn't like stylized, like it wasn't comic booky, I guess,
No.
in quotes, I want to say.
It was Wolverine killing people definitively.
Well, the thing that was interesting about the family scene is because it's like in these movies, if anybody in the family lives, it's going to be the kid. So to start off immediately having the kid die just because he like walked in, basically said everybody in this family is going to die.
Sure.
This is their last meal. I mean, it's just, it is such a unique movie in so many ways.
But I do appreciate how both of his parents had a last stand.
Oh yeah. They both, yeah, I love how they both had guns.
Yeah, it was solid. It was very, very tense, well done scene. I agree with all that. So any other specific?
And of course, I really enjoyed the racist getting cut down by
yeah.
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 X24.
Like the thing is, like it was. I chuckled to myself because so quickly when Logan himself is off helping Mr. Munson, was it?
Yeah.
So they get like hassled by of course, the local hillbillies who are trying to like run him off the land, and then Logan basically. Shit talks him down, like punches one guy in the face and is like, get out of here. So then they come back to fuck him up. They see X-24 and think it's Logan. I'm like, all you guys are all dead.
That was amazing.
Guess who's dead now? All of you.
I was watching Colbert the other night interview Patrick Stewart, and Stephen Colbert saw the movie. He goes, let me ask you a question. You made this movie before Donald Trump was elected. He's just like, this is like,
Sure. That's kind of funny, but anyway.
which is funny because obviously they took clues from What If because there was all those little nods and tropes. I'm not saying it was a political movie, but I'm saying part of the satire, if there was any in the movie, that was it. It's not a political movie. I want to make that very clear.
Fair enough. But I mean, that was a nice touch. And also any other specific scenes you guys want to talk about in the body? I'm going to give it a 1 overall.
Good.
I was very entertained. It sustained itself. And like you said, Steve, I think the best thing that it did was give you breathers, kept the pace up very nicely.
Oh, of course. Oh, I do want to bring up the growing like father-daughter.
I was waiting for
between
that. But you're right. They had moments of bonding between Laura,
especially the scene where Laura talks for the first time,
Yeah.
which is almost exclusively in Spanish.
Yeah.
Which somehow Wolverine doesn't know.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Because,
we'll get to it, I think,
whatever.
right?
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
But is that
He spends all of his credits in
Yeah, it's
Japanese.
one's all around.
One's around for the body?
Yes.
All right. Well, that'll bring
One's
you
all
and
around.
back, Steve-O, to conclusion.
So they get to this place that they're calling Eden. And basically they just kind of hunker down for a little while. Logan is pretty much completely wiped out at that point. He sleeps for like 2 days, and they're giving him small injections of what's this stuff called?
Whatever serum it is, I don't know.
Some serum.
It might be something from the comics. Rich might know that. I don't know if it's anything specific.
No. Whatever. They're giving him small doses of that to get his strength back up, help him heal faster. Eventually, he kind of just says, hey, go ahead. I think they're like 8 miles outside of the Canadian border. So he's like, you guys go. I don't want to be, I don't want to be around you. People around me end up dying all the time. So the next morning they take off, all the kids. I think there was like 13 or 14 of them or something like that, right?
Like a dozen, we'll say.
They all take off, and Logan looks into the air and sees a bunch of drones fly by. And then it's fucking on. So he snaps up the rest of the serum that he has,
Super serum.
runs out and tries to like go catch up with them. Comes in basically in the middle of the kids being rounded up by the Reavers, and Logan decides to take all of the serum, proceeds to beat the shit out of all these fucking guys, and
Logan's
With the help of Laura.
Yeah.
with the help of Laura, that's true, and a couple of the kids,
They also contribute using
and
their
gets into
various
a final
powers.
showdown with X-24, which is a really great fight scene. He ends up, they kind of battle to a standstill for a while, and then Logan gets impaled upon a tree, and Laura takes out the
Chekhov's bullet.
Chekhov's adamantium bullet, and blows his head off. And
With a
then-
revolver, I believe, or something
Yeah.
like that. But yeah.
Yeah,
It was a revolver.
But the bullet was set up earlier if we hadn't mentioned
right. And Logan ends up slowly dying, and that's pretty much it. I may have gone.
She buries him, gives a little soliloquy.
Yeah,
at
that's
the end.
true.
She gives the
She
line
does
from
she gives the
Shane
speech
back
from
to
Shane.
him as the death speech, which I thought, That's why I
Which is
mentioned
quite
it earlier.
good.
And then
It's-
turns the cross marker over to an X.
Yeah.
To an
Yeah,
X.
that was
Cue
awesome.
credits.
And also one of the other kids was walking away with a Wolverine toy or like a
Oh,
doll
yeah.
or something, if you guys noticed that.
Yeah.
Forgot
No, I
about
actually
that.
didn't.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, I mean-
I didn't notice that.
So it's sort of like almost Daniel Craig's run on Bond. This is Hugh Jackman's final portrayal as Wolverine, I believe, at least for now. So they all claim. So I think it was a very nice send off, and all those touches were well done. And yeah, the final battle scenes were excellent as well, like him versus himself essentially,
Yeah.
while the kids are supporting him and the Reavers are all trying to close in.
And also Laura versus a young Wolverine.
Yeah, that was really badass
that was
for sure.
That was a great fight.
Yeah, she was great in all her fight. All her fight scenes were quite good.
Yeah.
But that one's sort of like, again, the climax, of course, because it's at the end of the film. So it was,
Well,
go ahead.
the two things I really liked about the end is, number one, before you take the kids were giving him some of that green serum to kind of help Logan heal himself. So when he wakes up, one of the kids leaves him with a vial of it with the syringe that says "Don't take all at once." So I like that. It
So
kind of
obviously
sets it
he
up.
does do that.
Yeah,
What do you
it's
think he does?
Because they had that question like right before that, or right before he passed out again, where he
Yeah.
said, "Oh, this stuff makes you crazy." He's like, "Not in small doses."
Yeah, they
Right.
did explain it to him. So
I
of
like
course he uses it all to fight
that.
himself.
That was a nice little foreshadowing, and I loved how all the kids took out Pierce. All the
Yes.
kids come up.
Oh yeah.
That was the
And-
greatest karmic death I've ever seen.
they-
Revenge of the Children of the Corn is what
They
I
all
said.
use their powers on him at once and just
Yeah.
crush and freeze and
Yeah, it was quite well done.
Oh,
for
and
sure.
the girl with the cold breath. I liked when that one guy.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
you're
she
right.
shattered his arm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
she
a nice
breathed
touch.
on him, and yeah,
It was definitely a nice touch. So I'm giving it a 1. I thought I was very
Yeah.
satisfied. I thought it closed out quite
Definitely.
nicely.
I did.
Sort of a nice send off.
I forgot to mention something. The Dr. Rice's death, where Logan
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot to mention him. Yeah,
Logan-
Sorry.
has always, for all time, been set up as hating guns and all this stuff, and he shoots him right in the fucking face.
In the middle of his monologue.
in the middle of it.
That was-
in the middle of it.
Speech. Yeah.
that was
Give him
like
a villain
something you
speech.
didn't see coming. It's just
Yep. No, you're right.
that
That
was-
was a nice touch, Steve.
It was
Good call.
excellent.
So yeah, it was all again wrapped up. It was all. This movie sustained itself throughout and has a great closing.
Yeah.
I think so.
Absolutely.
Had fantastic pacing.
Yeah.
Steve,
Agreed.
you're getting it a 1.
Yeah, I completely
we're all
agree
giving
with
it
all
ones.
that. So 1 for me.
All right, and that'll bring me to themes. So I think, as Rich alluded to, or one of us just did, it's sort of like so they do. I think outright state that whatever the corporation was, Transgen,
Yes. Transgender.
etc. They were basically using mutant DNA to grow and train children soldiers who are like with mutations that they've selected and so forth. So of course, whatever. What was it?
Only after they inadvertently wiped out
Yeah,
the mutant gene.
Yes, after having done that.
Yeah,
But
because of the corn syrup.
His
Yeah.
speech though did address that. But regardless, what I'm getting at is that Laura has his DNA, of course. Like,
Yeah.
she can heal and she has the
I
claws.
wish I was paying attention more, like when they were flipping through the files, because they like zeroed in on his
On a
name
couple,
as like
yeah.
father,
Yeah,
and they had like shown a couple before that. I wanted to see which mutants were.
I'm sure you can find screenshots. Some nerd fan has it somewhere.
Of course,
But no. So so of course that's set up early on, and they grow. They fight together and also spend time together, and eventually form a bond at the end. So I think that's one of the major themes, of course. Like, you know,
Sure. Just family. in
family,
general,
yeah.
family, yes. And of course, Logan has his bond with Professor X. So
Yeah, his surrogate
it's like
father.
taking care of your other grandfather who's deteriorating, but who's in his deterioration, he could possibly kill everyone in the world.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I love it because like you could tell that like they have like a father-son relationship,
Yeah.
especially when Xavier in the beginning like tells him he's so disappointed in him.
Right.
Yeah.
And he like walks off like almost with his like head down, like
Yeah.
damn, that
Well,
actually, that actually hurt.
in a way, it kind of, it's kind of, in a weird way, it kind of was set up in the first X-Men and in
That kind of-
Days
yeah.
of Future Past.
Yeah.
Because in a lot of, because Xavier would always go into Logan's mind to help him. And then in Days of Future Past,
Actually, I like that,
it
yeah.
had to been the reverse.
That's pretty good.
So they did develop that kind of connection between them. So it really did make a lot of sense that it would be Wolverine that would see, for everybody who saw Xavier as a father figure, it'd really be like somebody like Wolverine,
Sure.
you know.
Just think about it, it kind of like had that like Back to the Future style feel of like a kid going back to seeing their younger father,
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of.
trying to call him to action.
And the one I want to have is I like the fact that the movie sort of lampshaded kind of mentally. So X-Men comic books exist in this world.
Right.
And Laura is a fan of them. She carries like one or two, and in fact, it's one of the MacGuffins. Like the coordinates that they're going to, where Eden is in fact a thing from one of the comics. And Logan just says it's all bullshit. Like none of this happened. Like people die in the real world.
Well, he didn't say none of it. About a quarter of it happened.
He said,
and not like this.
And not like that. You're right. That's exactly the line. So I just like the fact that it's sort of like addressed that, like, yeah, comic book in quote superhero movies, of course, are unrealistic. And I like the fact that in universe, X-Men comic books exist in universe, if you will. So I thought it was all pretty well addressed, and definitely the family was probably like the more obvious like theme that was contained throughout. And I thought it was well handled, as we just said, via the characters and their relationships to each other and their growth within those. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to give it a pretty strong, solid 1 on themes. If anybody, you guys got any other themes I didn't think of? Or
the one of the obvious ones is like the I guess time stops for no man, or like, you know, that type of, like, you know, you see Professor X as this, you know, 90-something-year-old old man. Like,
I'm a nonagenarian.
Yeah.
What did he say to Logan at one point? Like, she's got a long time about Laura. Like, she's got a long time to know about the impermanence of life.
No, she says she's already familiar with the.
Oh yeah, right. She's already familiar with it. Yeah.
He said something like she doesn't need a lesson in.
Yeah, she doesn't need a lesson in the impermanence of life.
Yeah.
But there's this really strong theme of like seeing these, you know, heroes as getting old and like, you know, losing a step and kind of struggling to figure out how to still do what they did when they're older. And I thought that was really interesting.
I do like the going off of that. It's like like pretty much the message of like them not giving up hope. Mm. Like you saw Xavier as soon as he started corresponding with Laura. Like he dropped back into like his old professor mode.
Yeah.
Where he's like trying to help cultivate a young mind.
Yeah, just and one more person who's in need of help. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then eventually got Logan to find that hero aspect in himself again.
No, I agree. I think it was all those things were, again, well threaded throughout the narrative. And I think they did a good job addressing them all.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to give it a 1 for themes.
Yeah, me too.
Sure.
Anybody got anything else?
Nope.
Additionally? All right. Well, then that'll bring us to antagonists with Rich. And so this one's interesting for me, so you go ahead.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like an action movie staple with you have the army that provide the physical threat, and then you have like the scientist who provides like another side of the threat. And I very much appreciate that they brought up the fact that he basically, like Xander Rice, basically eradicated the mutant gene almost as an afterthought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Pierce, like straight, it's like, this is the man that got rid of mutants. He's like, oh, well, it wasn't really all that. He's making it more grand than it seems.
Yeah.
But like what I felt made him a good villain is that all of them good villains is that they legitimately believed in what they were working towards. Like they considered the children like objects, tools for them to use. So in their minds, they were just collecting animals that had just gotten loose.
Pierce said something. He was like, "There's R&D projects that have been obsolete or like been deleted or recalled or something like that."
Yeah,
and it's like, and every time it wasn't really like a villain speech that Pierce was giving to these people in order to get them to help him. It was like, no, these are dangerous animals that have gotten out, and they're going to hurt more people unless we bring them back in.
Yeah.
Like, why don't you see things from our perspective?
One person I wish they'd brought in the movie, and I think we mentioned this precast, was Dr. Rice, because what I found interesting was it was kind of like this trickle down effect. Okay. Because at the beginning, there's Pierce, and you kind of know that he's somebody's muscle, but then you have the rest of the Reavers. So the rest of the Reavers are tools to Pierce. But when you get Rice in, like, all of a sudden you realize that, you know, these villains are just as much victims because they themselves are programmed by, you know, it's like a trickle down effect. So I felt like everybody under Rice or somebody of his level was just a tool operating on a different level.
I guess maybe. So this is the one I was wavering about the most. Maybe this and one other question, but this one first. So I get what you guys are saying, and on the surface, I would agree with it. I just don't think the portrayal was as strong. And like Rich said, like, yeah, you've seen this a million times, like the military muscle guy with his little crew, his platoon or whatever. And then the scientist who's behind him being like, we need them a lot. Like, you've seen that so many times. It's such a cliche, but when handled well, I just don't know if it was like, if I bought into, at least Pierce himself, that is, being as menacing or like, or even embodying that we're basically well-intentioned extremists.
Well, within the movie,
kind of what you're saying, right?
Let's go off of that. Within the movie, like they did not make, like they almost went out of their way to show that by himself he was not a menacing villain. His threat was the amount of people that he had to come save his ass.
I guess, but that
because like he gets taken out by a stray pipe immediately.
I guess
the first time that he tries to put his foot
That was
down,
amazing.
he gets knocked the fuck out.
That's fair. It's just like I just don't know if it got there for me in the set in terms of that. Even though I do,
But it's like him and the Reavers specifically, like their threat is basically like Logan says at the end of the movie, they're never going to stop coming.
Right.
You have no
true.
idea how many of them there are.
like I get that.
But the thing is, and I'm gonna talk about another antagonist, and this is kind of a thematic antagonist as Scott and I like to do. I'm gonna say one of the antagonists is time, because if you think one of the things I was thinking about during
Of course,
the movie,
I would have normally said that.
yeah, because one of the things I was thinking about in the movie was these villains. If Xavier and Wolverine were in their prime, there would be no.
This movie would have been done in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, seriously. So what I found was great was they had this handicap.
Well, to be fair, there would have been a lot
between
more
age and
X-Men if Xavier was still in his prime.
Right. And that's what I kept but even if it was just Xavier and Wolverine, the movie would have been over.
All right. Again, I get that. Yes, sure. And certainly like the march of time, as Ziva said, like waiting for no man, even superheroes. Sure, it was a good thing to include. Here's what I think it's come down to. They're almost like the Reavers, at least, the whatever corporation and et cetera that they're represented and work for. They're almost like card-carrying evil to me. Even though I understand the fact that they worked for the corporation, they viewed the children as objects that needed to be like dangerous things that needed to be reined in. I get that. And maybe it was like, not that I think that the guy who played Pierce did a bad job. I just think he didn't quite get there for me.
He was kind of like the stock muscle.
Right, but maybe the nebulous concept, you guys maybe just convinced me on that fact. Like, they'll never stop coming. Like, regardless, like, there's this faceless army basically behind this. Like, I get that, but as portrayed, the face of them being him and the Doctor, I think that if the Doctor was in it more, I think I would have been easily swayed to score this.
Oh, we're also forgetting X-24. Wouldn't he count as like a legitimate
he's
villain?
He's basically the dragon. Like, he just shows up. He's like their monster that they unleash. And like, yes, but he literally has no, even the film, it says he has no personality. He's just rage. You know what I mean? So like, so in that sense, like, yes, they were certainly antagonized by like a storm, like knocking down everything. But the storm does not have a face or a voice even.
No, it does have a face.
Right,
that face is Wolverine.
Fine. Fair enough. Oh, you got me there, Rich. But all I'm saying is just that I still don't know if it's all that is enough for me in my own mind to give it a 1. Even at the end of the day, it might be a soft 0. It's close, but to me, just maybe not enough. But the time thing might get to me. So, what do you got, Steve-O? You got anything else? This is normally, I'm taking your side in this question normally, bizarrely.
Yeah, I see Rice as like the main enemy in this. Okay. Despite the fact that you're right. I think I wish he had gotten a little more screen time, but I did like him a lot. I liked his villainy. I liked his style of villainy. All right. Yeah, like X-24 is just literally just rage embodied. Pierce was fine. I actually liked him probably a little bit better than you did, Scott.
See, that's the thing for me.
I liked him as just like the muscle. But if he was the main villain, I would have been like, oh, this is a weak villain.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah,
he could not have carried the antagonist
and that's what's tripping me up still.
But but I mean, I'm going to give this 1 because I'm going to keeping with the theme of tools. Yeah, they were the menace, but what was frustrating me through the whole movie, and in a good way, was that was one thing I kept thinking, like, come on, this is an easy level for you guys. Why aren't you? And you realize because they are fighting time, and they're fighting time literally because they have to get to North Dakota, by Friday or whatever. Sure. I mean, it's just.
Is that what the film said by Friday? Yeah. There was a cutoff point that they had to be there.
Yeah, they had to be there because they had to take off for Canada. So, I mean, it's just like they're doing battle against time the whole time. And like I said, it's just was frustrating me because I'm like, you guys have this, what, All
right. Here's how I've come down on this. I think I've decided, and I'm going to channel Jane Manzer, who is not joining us for this one. I like this film a lot. So that means the more I like it, the more harshly I'm going to judge it. And I'm probably going to take off. I don't think it's going to be it deserves to be a perfect 10 film, so I have to take off points somewhere. I think this is the one easiest for me to take off a point, even though you guys may convince me just now that's closer than I originally thought after the movie, but I'm still going to wind up probably giving it a softer 0.
Yeah.
Even though you all made valid points, and I see them as applied to the villain antagonist of the film.
I think this one's going to be a soft 1 for me.
All right.
It was close to giving it a 0, but
Yeah, okay.
I think it's going to be
Like I said, it's
slightly
closer
over.
now, but...
I'm giving it a 1 because the conglomerate of villains
All right.
makes for a good antagonist for me.
And Chris, you're giving it a 1 as well to
Yeah, it's
antagonist?
greater than some of his parts.
Yeah.
His robotic parts. All right, well, that'll bring us to protagonists, or ist, with Chris.
It's definitely Wolverine.
Logan.
Logan, sorry. It is definitely Logan because he is just the nexus of
Well,
everything.
The film is literally called Logan, so like,
Yeah.
don't see how it can't
I
be
mean,
him.
I
He's busting your balls.
really don't know how else to explain it because it'd be hard to really consider, Xavier or Laura not
See,
to
I might
be,
make a point for Laura.
but I was going to say they're kind of contributing factors. I wouldn't call them, what I was going to say is I really wouldn't call them supporting characters. I would say the
That's what I was-
chief,
that's what I
the
was trying
chief
to figure
protagonist
out.
is definitely Logan because he's the nexus for it all.
Sure.
But,
As with all X-Men
but,
films.
but, Xavier translates Laura for a long time so I'm going to say the three of them kind of form some kind of
A group.
triad of, yeah.
I was kind of leaning the same
Yeah.
way. What do you think?
I think it's all three of them. I was going to say, like, Laura's kind of the Furiosa to Mad Max in this movie.
All right.
I would say.
Kind of,
So,
yeah, I
like,
like
I
that.
see her as definitely a protagonist. And Professor X also, to a degree, he's, despite the fact that he bows out a little bit earlier than everybody
Yeah,
else,
it's hard to like
he's
pin him into what he counts as, but
very important to this movie. And his
Would you say he like takes the mentor role in the hero's journey?
yeah, kind of.
yeah, but it's
I mean,
also
he's always been that,
to some
but-
degree, it's also his journey that he's going on. And,
True.
and,
He's
the
like,
end
he's
of his
got
hero's
he's
journey.
got a little bit of a redemption arc
Yeah.
going.
True.
and he his presence is felt even after he's gone, in this movie.
for sure.
And I would say that he was a protagonist, and all three of them were incredibly strong. It's a really well done movie. All three of those parts were written very well
Yep.
and acted incredibly well.
Mm-hmm.
I
So-
agree with all that. Yeah, it's like it's again, it was kind of like refreshing is not quite the word maybe, but it was a nice touch that Hugh Jackman again looked older, like the makeup
Yeah.
job, and he just is older for like as a dude because time waits for no man, even actors.
Right.
But like, so and like you said, like he had like a little limp. It almost was a nice little touch. So it was believable that this was a much older Logan, and who played Laura.
Props to the makeup department.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like
And apparently
he looked like
Patrick's-
an old Logan would be, and Patrick Stewart as well.
Apparently he lost 20 pounds for the role.
Yeah,
and
he
he's
looked
already
frail. Yeah, he did not look healthy, and that was like that made him such a believable, like deteriorating. Like, you're like, oh man, it's
It's
kind of
weird to see
Yeah.
Patrick Stewart look old, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it is
Kind
because
of,
he
yeah.
doesn't age.
Because he's the ageless.
And I know for a fact that like he always says that he works out and so forth. So he's very strong for his age. So to see him that frail was weird.
Yeah.
I wonder
exactly.
if like in the out or like behind the scenes footage, you just see him like step out of the wheelchair and start doing push-ups.
So what was it? What was the actress' name? I'm sorry, Steve, you have it in front of you. Who played Laura?
Daphne Keane.
Yes, she did. Again, and you were busting my balls because recently, number of films we've seen featured child actors, and I thought they actually did a good job, even though I normally don't.
I'm in the
not
same
a
boat
fan
as
of-
you. I usually strongly dislike child actors.
Yes, but
Seriously.
in this instance, she did a great job, and like it made sense to her character. She didn't say a word for the whole time, but because of the nature of her character in the film, that made sense.
Till the conclusion.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
But I'm saying, like, leading up to that, she would just be like killing people, like giving people looks,
I mean,
and that's
because
it. But not
She
saying anything.
was basically feral. For
Yes,
the first
exactly.
part of the movie.
with child actors, it's one of those things where it's just like, oh, they're a really good actor, but like less is always more when it comes to child actors. So when you have an actor that's able to help carry a film as strongly as she did, or as strongly as the young boy did in Lion, though that's not just like,
It's
hey,
the exception and not the rule.
Yeah,
So when
it
I see
is.
it, I'll point it out. But I'll give credit to her for sure. And I think, collectively, basically a trio, even though Professor X, ends up having to be buried towards the end of the film. But he was, like you said, certainly his presence was felt when he was there and definitely when he was gone as well. So I'll give them all collectively a very strong
At
one.
least there was
Yep,
water.
one for me as well.
Yes.
yeah, that
exactly.
kept breaking my heart, man.
All right, so we'll move on to secondary characters / supporting with Steve-O.
This was a fairly small amount of important supporting characters, I guess. Just because we've listed
Well, we're not counting Professor X as such. So.
Yeah, we've listed like 6 people between antagonists and protagonists so far. But
I guess
Caliban,
of course, he's
played by Stephen Merchant, was really good in his supporting role. The Munsons,
yep,
their whole family was pretty good. Gabriella
was fine.
The nurse, yeah, I mean, she there wasn't that much to her.
Like, I don't mean
she was important for the exposition.
Yeah, I don't mean this as an insult, but she's more of a plot device kind of than actual character, and just the nature of the story. But she was fine when she was on screen.
And to an extent, the Munsons were the same way. They were a plot device to further the family theme.
Yeah, but I mean, for the short amount of time they were on,
I feel like the Munsons
I bought them as a family.
Yeah,
I feel like the Munsons had less of a purpose than Gabriella.
Yeah,
because theirs was basically just to make things more tragic.
Yeah, that's kind of the purpose. And
I guess to maybe give Logan a taste of what he could have if he let himself be happy, for it to be taken out from under him again.
Yeah, that's true, I guess.
And I guess the rednecks are.
I suppose. And what about all the rest of the Reavers? I suppose as well.
Yeah,
anybody?
Pierce. Pierce.
Well, really, there's only I would call the one guy an important supporting character, the leader of the redneck crew, I guess, that gets his face bashed.
I guess
is he really important though?
Well, that's to me that was one of these things where if these guys were in their prime, this would be a no-brainer. Logan would have these guys running in no time.
Well, he did, and then Logan in his prime murdered them all.
Yeah, in the middle of a second.
So it's that proves your point, I guess. But
see, because the younger mutants kind of supporting characters.
Yeah,
Richter. It was great to see him in a movie finally.
Yeah, and actually that whole ending part was good with them was pretty good. So
yeah, it was also it's sort of like the collective crowd. Like for example, we didn't mention it, but in the beginning, in the montage of Logan being a limo driver, he's driving a bunch of drunken frat boys, and then a bunch of drunken sorority chicks or whatever, and some an old oil guy.
The wedding party.
The wedding party. Yeah, the wedding party. Yeah. So I guess collectively the crowd, for example, the people at the casino, all that stuff, the clerk who confronts Laura at the rest stop.
Oh,
yeah, all the random,
woman that was selling the truck.
The random townsfolk I thought were all pretty good. So it's basically
they did give a really good idea of what the world was like now, because if you paid attention to the radio when they were talking about the Westchester attack, and they mentioned outright the X-Men.
Yeah.
The X-Men have been operating in the public eye for at least some time now.
Right. Yeah.
So the humans are at least, enough to have a comic series based off.
Exactly.
So they're famous superheroes in their own right. So I guess the public is more accepting of mutants now than they've shown in previous movies.
I think that,
and then they get wiped off the face of the planet pretty much.
Well, the one doctor that he ran into when he's just I have waited almost my entire life to look over one of you. Thank you for this.
Yeah, that's right.
Goes screw and walks away.
No, so like I said, the world itself, I guess, maybe counts because we basically mentioned all the other characters in other categories. But I bought into it and I believed it, and I thought everyone did a very nice job rounding it all out.
Well, I was going to say Caliban is his importance can't be underestimated, because at the beginning he is Logan's conscience.
Yes,
because Logan is out
and
of it.
Also, apparently,
and his handmaid.
But the thing is,
they have a husband,
yeah, they do.
I was gonna say husband wife, but they have a married couple.
I saw the blood on your shirt.
Yeah,
what did you do last night?
Exactly. It's kind of look,
stay out of my fucking room.
I'm watching your father for you, and because Logan was was taking care of Xavier, you knew he loved him, but there was still an emotional detachment from it, and Caliban really, connected those two elements together really nicely. So, I mean, on the basis of him and him alone, it has to get a one.
I'll probably agree with that.
I agree.
And like I said, every other ancillary, tertiary character as well.
Yeah, they were all good too.
The textures of all the little characters, the townsfolk, as you said, perfect.
Exactly. So that'll bring me to my next hurdle: dialogue. I'm This is the one I was most unsure about because it's almost a 50-50 split where 50% of it was pretty excellent, like exchanges and like almost commentary. And then 50% of it on the other side of the coin, it was like drab to me. Like I was like, don't like, it wasn't eye rolling per se or cringeworthy. It just was like not quite the caliber / quality I thought or maybe was expecting. So it's harsh. So I'm going to leave this one open. You guys try to convince me or give me your arguments.
As I always say that, like, as long as it's not cringeworthy, as long as it's very natural, it'll usually get a.
But some of it felt kind of unnatural to me.
But see, to me,
Like,
none of it did.
I'm trying to think, like,
unnatural.
But
all right, so go ahead.
I was going to say Pierce was probably about the only stock dialogue that I would call. But if there's no other scene in this movie that would give it a 1 for me, and I'm giving away my score now, is that dinner scene. The dialogue, the interplay, it wasn't just the lines, but it was how they were delivered. But
I guess
the lines
I
were,
agree because you could
it was amazing.
Because just the way that they opened up more, like with especially the line where Professor was when they were what was it, Baby Munson or the child, I forgot his name.
Munson's son.
Yeah.
Son.
Yeah.
Sonson?
Nate Munson.
Nate
Right,
Munson.
there you go, yeah.
So when Nate was talking about dropping out of school to do some traveling, and then Logan mentioned that Xavier used to be a professor.
You're right. That was really good.
And
That's
then
true.
like the more they opened up about it, it's like, yeah, he's like, Logan went. He's like, I got kicked out quite a few times. It's like, I would say that you were a good student, but I'd probably choke on the words.
yeah, like that was a
And
good exchange. You're right.
yeah.
But so there were, like I said, there were moments of dialogue like that I really enjoyed. Like, and even the confrontation with the rednecks again. He's like, oh, what did they say to Logan? You must have, you're familiar with this
Yeah,
sound
when he
of the gun.
when he cocks the
Yeah.
gun.
when he does the shotgun, he's like, more than you know. Like, I like that. Like, it was like a haggard. It wasn't like
It was
a
like a little
badass
too
face.
familiar,
It was
yeah.
like, yeah, I've heard it
Yeah.
a lot. So, but other times, like, you're right. I think Pierce did have the most, like, stuck, like, I'm the military muscle guy. Like,
Yeah.
I think he put a difference. I think he put a like novel enough
I
spin on
don't
it
think
for
so,
me.
but not to me. That's
well, I mean,
the problem here. But
the actor sold that dialogue for me.
Not
but
to me.
Because it wasn't
if you
really.
took the dialogue without the actor, it's stock dialogue.
But I don't
mean,
feel like it was stock. Like not. Like I think his flunkies had stock dialogue.
yeah.
maybe, but I still, like, to me, it's more stocky.
I mean,
if you will,
but there
as
were a
applied to
couple.
him.
He did have a couple good lines within that, but
Because especially because what I expected for him to have stock dialogue for is when he sent his soldiers in to go get her, and then especially like when she went on the run after she killed.
And I think he kind of did. He was like, I don't know. Like,
No, but like when they went
quick
after
on
her,
the
it's like he's like, stop firing. She heals.
yeah.
It's just to go in and take
I remember
her.
that as a nice touch. So again, like, it's pretty close. It's just, there was some of it when I can't think of any lines specifically, actually, Rich, that I thought were bad per se. Just that I sort of maybe was like zoning out on a couple. But the moments, like I just said, and like you pointed out, like at dinner, and I think there was a talk between Logan and Xavier, like when they're in their truck,
Yeah.
that I quite liked. So I don't know, again, channeling Ian Manzer, I may just be judging this one like at a higher scale than normal.
But
And if
you
I'm going
have-
to take points away from the movie, I might take them away here. So
You have to say, I'm going to kind of low blow you because you
Okay.
said that you still see X2 as a better X-Men movie than this. And think of how cringeworthy that dialogue is.
Yeah.
Well, you guys asked me precast, is this my favorite one in the franchise in the timeline? And I was like, I still like X2, but two, now that you've said that, Rich, I haven't seen X2 in a while. And you're right, some of it definitely was that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even like remembering what I do remember of it. So again, it's not that I think it's bad or anything like that. I think, again, I'm going to take just the smallest bit of credit away on this front because that was my original gut reaction. But you guys did remind me that, in fact, there were quite good moments of good dialogue that I did enjoy, that I thought was well written and, yes, well acted as well.
Yeah.
So I'm just giving it, again, maybe a softer 0, but on that front, I'm just going to give it just the tiniest bit of minus points.
This was a place where I was thinking about taking a point away, and just for the fact that because this, and the same thing that you were just mentioning, Scott, because this movie was attempting to be something perhaps more than your standard superhero movie fare, I was kind of judging the dialogue harshly. I think I'm still going to give it a 1, but it's going to be a very soft 1.
All right.
And this was
Like I could have gone that way too, I think. And like I said, I made my argument, so.
yeah, this is
But
one
I
of
see
the
what you're
places
saying.
that I might have taken away points,
Hmm.
but there were too many scenes that I'm going to remember from this movie, and I think that's the difference. Like the
That's
dialogue
fair.
in those scenes was solid.
Sure. All right.
So,
Well, that's one from everybody but me, it seems, on dialogue.
Yep.
All right. And so we're going to be at style now. Back to you, Rich.
Style. I made a couple of comparisons to Gran Torino, like
Mhm.
precast, and like of course throughout the day when I was trying to explain this movie to people,
yeah.
because it's just like it reminded me of like a film, maybe like if this was made like 20 or so years earlier, I feel like Clint Eastwood would be in the
it, yeah.
protagonist role.
And you said it to me, and I agree with that. So I definitely got that feel.
And
from
like
it
it's
as well.
definitely like simply because of that, like it has like a Western feel to it.
Mhm.
Of course, with them having Shane in the
Yeah.
middle of the movie to draw
Yeah.
comparisons to, but it's like his last hurrah before he.
Exactly. Yeah.
But like I love the tone of the movie. I love the choreography.
Mhm.
I can't get
Mhm.
enough
Yep.
of that
Exactly.
because I'm a huge stickler for choreography. Well, fight choreography.
Yeah.
And like making it look or not having me break immersion from the movie.
Right.
And like seeing this little girl destroy everybody that comes after her was done so realistically that
Yeah. No, I agree. I think I said. God,
I like that you use the term realistically for having a little girl beat up a bunch of grown men, but
Beat up, butcher.
Yes.
well it helps that her adamantium skeleton gives her like another 100 or so pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah,
true.
it's
So
true.
she's actually hitting with the force of somebody my size.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're right. Like certainly the fight choreography, like I believe I said, or one of us did again, it was pretty brutally, like, it wasn't glorifying it, but it was like in your face, but looked believable for what was happening with, given that people had metal claws and so forth. And all the action, like, and I think Steve and I also said earlier that the casino scene was one of the set pieces that looked really great too, with everyone like,
Yeah.
and Logan fighting through basically Professor X's like mind paralysis.
yeah.
So all of that was great, and also like you said, like Rich said, it just looked cool as a Western. Like lots of great open sweeping shots of like Mexico,
And
and
the
like so some of the city as well, and like just like the desolation of like that juxtaposed with whatever is left in the city.
Even I also like the pick for North Dakota as another set piece.
Yeah.
The openness of that.
Yeah, that was great too. as
And
well.
I like the way it wasn't shot like, it was definitely somebody I'd read somewhere that, it reminded them of like the Dark Knight of the X-Men series.
Mhm.
And I don't know if
I
I'd
s-
say,
I-
I would,
I s-
I don't know
I
if I would say that,
Yeah,
but I would probably
I saw that on a
say,
commercial too.
I don't think there's an apples to apples comparison, but my whole point is one of the appeals I had with the Nolan films is they were shot like movies and each one was made thinking there's never going to be another one. And when you look at this movie, there's none of that stuff there's no like sweeping landscapes. They shoot it like a Western, like the whole scene with the horses on the
highway. Yeah.
Any other superhero movie, like, if they're on the prime, whatever, that whole scene would have been shot completely different. This was much more of a drama.
Yeah.
This is,
I think what set the tone for that was especially the opening scene
Yeah.
Exactly.
with like that opening fight or altercation with him and the gang members was just like, it wasn't like a superhero fight. Like
Exactly.
there
Yeah,
was
it was all
It was a
close
brawl.
combat.
it was a
wasn't-
brawl. It was a brawl. Yeah.
Yeah,
The-
agreed.
It was gritty.
The very grit.
Exactly.
That's what I was just going to say. The very grittiness of this really sets it apart from other superhero films.
Yeah, there's
we've
no
seen.
And what
there's
I
no
liked-
fanfare or
Exactly.
And what I liked about this was that you don't see any of the, except for Xavier's seizures, you don't see any of the like science fiction, like supernatural, let's say, mutant powers.
yeah, well, and the kids
Until
too.
Couple of the kids.
No, but what I'm saying,
Oh,
until the
kids.
end.
Okay,
You're right.
It's not like this were present through the movie. It's
No.
not like the Reavers had like their own mutations per person. This didn't come out until the end of the movie and it didn't overwhelm you. It's just like one truck was turned over and what they did to Pierce and somebody, it wasn't like an effects shot. It was still,
True,
as
you're
you were
right.
saying, it was very gritty, very
This
real.
was smaller
Sure, like
scale.
up until
Yeah.
that point in the movie, it was just if somebody with a bunch of knives just sliced up everybody.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think style is one of the strongest ones.
Yeah, I agree.
Aspects about this movie, and I'm giving it a very strong one.
I completely agree with that. I love the style of this flick
right.
from start to finish.
Yep.
Agreed.
One's from everybody on style, and we're down to recommendation with Chris.
When I got home last night, my wife Beth asked me to tell her about it, and she said, "Woona, what'd you think? You know, if it was going to be the ending?" And I said, my favorite X-Men movies are the first X-Men, X2, Days of Future Past, and like I really love. I thought First Class was a great introduction, and if this is the epilogue, it was absolutely positively perfect. So, but there's like enough in here that if you aren't an X-Men film, like the little winks and nods and Easter eggs in it aren't enough so that it overwhelms the picture that nobody walking into this thing can't get it if they're not completely familiar with the universe. As a fan of these movies and a fan of the comics to a certain extent, there are very few people, that are under the age of 15 that I wouldn't recommend this to.
Well, luckily, this is an R-rated film. So.
Yeah, this is getting a very strong one.
I feel like this has enough going for it that you really don't need to see the other movies.
Yes.
Because it's self-contained, where like they give you enough background throughout the film where you can pretty much gather Xavier ran a school for mutants.
Right.
He no longer does. Something tragic happened.
Yeah.
And now, Wolverine's a broken man, and now he's trying to.
But one of the things I said that I read was that this could be the one-off comic book, the kind of what if or some kind of the movie version. And that's kind of the way I feel about like First Class is I feel there's a weird disconnect to it. Whereas I feel the through line. So that's what I was saying before is this is very much a compliment for this film in the same vein that like somebody can walk into First Class and enjoy it without knowing the rest of it. You can walk into this one and enjoy it without knowing the rest of it either.
Yeah. I agree with that. Like it's a nice touch, a nice little inclusion that you don't necessarily need to know all the baggage and so forth about all the previous films to enjoy it on its own. And if you are like a fan of like the original Old Man Logan, while not a 1-to-1 ratio, it still sort of had touches of that. You sort of see a beloved character from the franchise in a different light and well portrayed. And like I said, if this is Hugh Jackman's Daniel Craig / Bond swan song. It's a great way to go out, and it's well done throughout. And yeah, I think anybody can enjoy this film. And if you are, again, more comic-y nerds like us, it's even better.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, the only reason you're not going to enjoy this is if you really hate gratuitous amounts of violence.
Yeah.
See, I don't think they're gratuitous.
It weren't even
exactly.
It's gratuitous in the war
it is
film way.
Incredibly gratuitous amounts of violence.
It is, but it would be.
But like,
more than one person get their head chopped off.
But when you say
gratuitous,
it's almost like as if it's a farce.
Yeah, as if the whole film was that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No.
But the thing is, it's gratuitous not in the way that like Deadpool was, but in the way that something like the first 25 minutes of Saving Private Ryan is. Where you walk into this film and basically there's butchery for the first 20 during the D-Day invasion.
I don't want to get us trapped into this. I see what you're saying. I just want to.
No, I'm just saying
that
the tone of it wasn't.
Sure.
I don't say that it having gratuitous violence is a bad thing, but it is definitely a gratuitous amount of violence.
It definitely
it's
earns the
gratuitous
R.
without being exploitive.
Yes.
Sure.
You want to see a bunch of people get knives through their head? You can watch, some horror movie, or you can watch this.
Do you want to see Wolverine use his claws like he's supposed to?
Yeah, exactly. What those claws are made for is exactly what this movie does.
and one thing
it was kind of weird, like seeing this and like thinking back to like X2 when he's like the scene where he's like taking out all the soldiers.
Yeah,
and he's just like cleanly stabbing them through the chest.
Yeah,
and then falling to the ground, and then. Like those guys got off way easier.
Yeah, they were even like towards the shoulders too. But one of the things I'm going to say about recommending is make sure you get there for the trailers because
don't give anything away.
Okay,
just get there early enough.
The
extra trailer sort of that's tagged onto Logan.
Specifically, this movie.
It's excellent.
So anyway, yes, I do recommend it.
All right, so everyone's recommending it, gratuitous or not. We gratuitously recommend it.
Yes.
So, all right. So that's the final scores. Everybody has now given their tally, and looks like Rich, Chris, and Stevo have given it a 10, and I gave it an 8, sort of somewhat begrudgingly, which will give us a 9.5, I believe. If I've done the
9.25.
9.25. I'm sorry. Yes. Thank you, Stevo. Overall, which I think is pretty deserved. I believe it has something like a 92 or 3% on Rotten Tomatoes, like other scoring sites.
Well earned.
Yes,
so but
yeah, Logan was pretty goddamn amazing. It's pretty badass and just well done throughout. an excellent, like, I think, again,
Is this the first time in history that the third movie in a trilogy is the best one out of the trilogy?
Yeah.
maybe not in history, but it's very few and far
I
between.
mean, I know they show little clips of it in like Days of Future Past and stuff. But I just kind of, and I think they did too, written off, X-Men Origins Wolverine. I mean, that movie was just so awful in so many ways.
Let's just forget about it.
Yeah.
Let's everyone just
Let's
see
no
Logan
longer
instead.
talk about
So
that.
the Wolverine was good. I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. But this one was a
Yeah.
This one
This
much
one's a
better.
Steps
masterpiece.
above.
Yes, this was definitely an
Yes.
excellent film and just all around. And like again, I'll give Ian's quote that if superhero / comic book movies are to be taken more seriously, then movies like this need to be made. And thankfully, they made this one and did a good job. So, any other final thoughts, fellas?
No.
All right, I think that'll do it for Logan. Thank you for joining us for Bon Mots. I, of course, have been Scott Thurlow, joined by Rich Perry,
to me my X-Men.
Chris Morgan,
Good night.
and Stephen Amosi.
Have a good night.
And we'll see you next time.
Editing and engineering by Christopher Morgan. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates.